Welcome, everybody, to another Tuesday night in the spotlight. Tonight, I have joining me Lisa Scott from Permission to Live in the End. And tonight, she's going to be talking to us about how our imagination creates our reality. Lisa is a manifesting coach and metaphysician, an author, speaker, and blogger. At just 12 years old, Lisa stepped into the state of being as a teacher in order to assist herself from having a hard time to getting a B in the class through the use of her imagination. Lisa manifested the following and more. So she's worked as an educator for one of her area's largest healthcare organizations without the normally required bachelor's degree. She's working a part-time job making full-time money. She's traveling back, visiting and having a conversation with her younger self energetically, giving voice to her younger self and healing an entire timeline of blocked energies and unconscious limiting thoughts and more. Lisa helps professional women answer the call to their soul calling career by learning how to stop worrying about the how. Lisa also has a YouTube channel, which is Permission to Live in the End, where she shares her personal manifesting experiences. You guys can visit Lisa's website at lisascott.org to get your own free 15-minute discovery session and to sign up for her email list for professional women looking to answer the call to their soul calling career. So thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us here tonight. What an incredible bio. I'm so incredibly happy to have you here. And as I was saying to you when we first got on the Zoom here, a part of that excitement is just seeing your Facebook posts and the content that you're posting. It resonates so well with me. So thank you for sharing that out into the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for inviting me into your space. And I'm so glad that you saw what I was putting out into the world and that it resonated with you enough to have me here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit more about how are you using this imagination to create your reality? And I mean, at the age of 12, how did you get this idea that this was something that you should be doing?
Actually, it's really interesting because I say, we have a lot of different forks in the road in our lives. And when I look back at my own life, I consider that to be one of those forks in the road where I said, wow, as far as I can remember, that is the time when I was 12 years old, where I first realized that I was able to, I didn't know it was called imagination or anything like that at that time. And this is what I marvel at in terms of the brilliance of who we are as human beings, is we don't have to know what anything is called. It's something that is happening inside of us. It's an inherent ability that we all have. And for some reason, this particular day, I was watching my teacher. She was up at the chalkboard, and I don't even remember what class it was, but I had a teacher who was up at the chalkboard, and she's, putting information on a chalkboard, and I was having a difficult time understanding what she was doing. And something inside of me, myself, started to say, well, I said to myself, if she would only teach this in a way that I could get it, I know I could get this information. And then I heard myself just clearly say, well, why don't you teach it in the way that you think that she should be teaching you? Why don't you teach yourself? And there was nothing about what I had just heard that did not resonate with me. And from that moment on, I said, you know what? Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I didn't know anything about the details of what was going to happen next, but I just allowed myself to just listen to what was coming to me. The next thing you know, I was in my bedroom at my house, and I decided to create an imaginary classroom inside of my bedroom. I walked around with the book in hand that I was having difficulty in, and I actually started to see in my mind's eye imaginary students in my bedroom. And I would take the book and just walk around, and I decided to name a couple of people, the imaginary students. I took roll call. I did all kinds of stuff where I act. Huh?
I love that. It is like imagination to the key.
Exactly. But it's what we start out with anyway as children. I mean, I know you can probably remember, I don't know if you have siblings or whatever, even if you don't, but as children, we have this capacity to go inside of a state of being, of utilizing this space called imagination. We can create anything we want. And from what I can remember, my friends and I, when we were outside playing, and we might have said, "Oh, well, you be the mom and you be the dad, and all of this." We went for hours and hours and hours, and the next thing you know, hours had passed, and we were fully inside of what now I call a state of being,
Yeah.
fully utilizing every single aspect of our imagination, complete with all the neurological responses that go along with that inside of the body. And just as years have gone on, I have continued, later on, years later, I continued to study this information, continue to marvel at the power of the mind, and just have decided that this is what I want to master. And that's it. Here's I continue to do that work to this day.
That is amazing. So we have one lady that's asking you, congrats to you, girlfriend. She says, how do I know what is blocking my energy? So when it comes to imagination, how would you know what's kind of blocking you from being able to imagine what it is that you actually want to create for yourself?
The first indicator is that something feels off inside of the body.
Mm.
Or there's a discomfort, or something continues to come back to you over and over and over again, and it will not leave you alone. So you might not know the particular name of that particular thing. It could be something called frustration. It could be something called anger. It could be, whatever these emotional states of being that we enter into. The bottom line is that it hasn't gone anywhere. And when something has not gone anywhere, you must stop and pay attention to what exactly is this. And what I really appreciate that person's question, because I created a process that I call leverage your pain. And if you understand the term leverage means to get the most out of something. Mm. And what I had come to realize over the years is that a lot of times we're taught to shun away things that feel like they don't feel so good inside of the body, to pray it away, affirm it away, deny it away. And what I always do, I say that I must be first partaker of the things I talk to people about. So I stop and I pay attention to, there has not been one single thing in my life that I have been able to overcome that I did not first turn around and face whatever was going on with me inside of my body that was causing me what I consider to be pain of some sort, whatever that may be called. And this, I don't know if it might sound awkward to your viewers or whatever. I have a feeling it would not, but I have conversations with those states of being, and I will ask that anger, because you can have anger about something or frustration about something, but the communication that particular anger has with regard to that particular thing is going to communicate something completely different than another space and time. So the first thing I'll say is that we always know what's going on with us. It's just a matter of whether we're taking in more information externally and deciding to try to ignore this thing that's going on. Mm-hmm. But as you turn and face whatever this is, and you ask it, first of all, acknowledge it. A lot of times, simply by acknowledging something, it just wanted to be acknowledged, and it will simply go away for some people. For others, if you sit and you allow yourself a space and time to talk to whatever this frustration, anger, whatever that emotional pain may be, it will begin to communicate to you. It will begin to tell you exactly what's going on, because you already knew anyway. You already knew. It's just a matter of, okay, now I'm ready to turn and face this and, begin to acknowledge and do whatever I need to do to allow it to communicate to me.
Love that. Absolutely love that. And it's such powerful work when you allow yourself to sit with the pain or to sit with the anger, to have those conversations with it. Mm-hmm. And I know for myself, there's been times where I've been absolutely mind blown by what my body's holding on to or why it's reacting that way. And you just go, oh, okay. And then there's this new level of compassion for the self that ends up coming through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I bet you identify the fact that the more and more you pay attention to yourself and have that commune. I heard that word a couple days ago and I said, oh, I love that word. As we allow ourselves to commune with ourselves, it does definitely bring upon us compassion for others, because we recognize the level of complexity that is happening within our own being. So that is absolutely what's happening with everyone else as well. If it's happening with us, it's happening with everyone else. We may not know the particulars about what's going on with someone, but we definitely know that pain is pain is pain is pain, and it communicates itself differently based on whatever those scenarios and circumstances are. But we all experience these emotional pains at some point or another.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And the compassion for others is a huge thing, because so
Yeah,
often we can get so caught up in what our own experience is that we don't allow ourselves to find that compassion or to even imagine that this other person might be in pain and that's why they're reacting the way that they are. But when you
exactly.
approach it with the compassion, suddenly you don't seem so separate. And I feel like that's what we're all working towards, is like a oneness of everybody through
Yeah.
all of the pain.
Oh yeah, we're all absolutely one. Now, you know, for many that may seem like just a concept or just a, some philosophy or something somebody's saying, but I when I really stop and think about that, first of all, if we do any level of study about the magnetic or the frequency, the frequency with which vibration of the heart, has, I don't know what the statistics are on how far out that is reaching, but you know for a fact that when you enter a room, you know whether that room feels good or bad. You know whether you want to stay or whether you want to go. You know when you enter into someone's energetic space, whether or not, without that person saying a word, you begin to feel what we call a vibe.
Yeah.
So these things are confirming the fact that we are all connected to one another. And without any communication having to happen, these things are happening. But because so much external communication is also at play, we pay more attention to the external communication than we do our own. But we are communicating without words way more often than we are communicating with words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, coming back to the idea of imagination. So, the first step, I guess, is if you're in denial of any emotion that's in there and that's blocking you, it would be to sit with that. Then, what is the next key? Do you just simply sit and think about what it is that you want, imagining kind of what the particulars of that are? Is it just getting into the state of being like it's already happening? What is your process for that?
Well, imagination, the reason I wanted to talk about imagination is because imagination allows us, this is an inherent faculty that we all have, and it allows us to go into a space. When you think about imagination, automatically your imagination takes you into a more expanded understanding of who you even are as an individual. So you're no longer just here in this room, in this, space. As soon as you hear imagination, you think bigger. And when you utilize that space, what I understand is that this breaks down any walls or barriers. If you understand what imagination is and you play around in that space, you can call into that space whatever you want. There is no in imagination. So whatever it is you imagine is there. It's no sooner than you think it. Your thoughts, or yes, your thoughts coupled with your emotions together, that is creating your reality. So as soon as I say, I'll just throw some words out so your listeners can confirm that this is true. So as soon as I say the word lemon, Your mind automatically tells you it's yellow, it's bitter. When you pull it apart, it has these little granules or whatever you call them, and your mouth might salivate and all of this. Yeah, this is the power that we are utilizing all the time. So we're always utilizing imagination. And in order to key in on something that may be bothering you, I like to utilize imagination so that just automatically that you have this capability. Like no one outside of you has to tell you anything. I mean, you can decide to go to somebody else if you want to, but you don't have to do that because you have that ability already inherently inside of you. So my first step is paying attention to whatever your emotional state of being is. And then once you have that communication and you understand exactly what's going on with whatever this may be, you have an opportunity, like I said, first to honor it, because it's not necessarily about trying to get rid of something or trying to fix something, per se. Because a lot of times our emotional states of being just want to be recognized. And because we function as in such what I'll call fragmentation. So we're thinking emotion is over there and, job over there. My role as mom is over there and this is over there. When in actuality, it's all one, it's all connected. Yeah. So once you pay attention to your emotional state of being and you acknowledge it and you have that communication with that state of being, then you can understand, okay, if a lot of times a dis-ease, a discomfort, something that's bothering us is there because you're in a space of wanting to do something else, or you're in a space of growth or expansion. And now you're feeling this thing called discomfort. Let's just think about the fact that all that time preceding you're being aware, you weren't aware. So everything was fine and what was happening was serving you and everything's okay. And then all of a sudden you're not feeling okay anymore. The reason you're not feeling okay anymore is because everybody's always growing, expanding, because you're taking in information, you're perceiving all of this. So now the present tense you is now saying something else. There's something else going on where when something was once okay, it's no longer okay. So the discomfort arises to bring your attention. So now you can identify, oh, okay, something's going on here. Do I want to continue with this process, or am I going to let it go? Does it serve me in this other space, whatever that may be? Or am I going to continue with this, as it's been?
Love it. Absolutely love it. So
yeah.
when you get to that kind of place of, am I going to let this go, or am I going to go through the process? Go through the process. Is there, because I can actually look back through my life and look at times where I've just been like, okay, I'm letting that go. I've outgrown this, letting it go, and it feels great. Then there's other times where I go, I'm going to let that go. But first I'm going to sit here in the discomfort for another 6 months because I'm too afraid to let that part go. So how do you help people, or how do you even help yourself to move through that process of letting go when there's all that fear that does come up with it?
Well, you have to be in a space of allowing, because and understand that there is no prescription for the process of something called letting go. So if you have a preconceived idea in your mind that, because I've identified something, I have to do this, that, or the other, that in and of itself is a problem. That can be a problem and put more stress on you. You would allow the process to take as long as the process is going to take, because everyone is different. For some people, it's a matter of crying. For some people, it's a matter of processing because there's a belief that I need to understand something about this before I can let it go. For some people, it's a matter of getting in a car and driving and just, saying I'm going to let it go. So everyone, there's no cookie cutter way of talking about what the exacts are going to be for any individual in terms of that process. I can only say that by the time someone gets to me, and I do a 2-hour VIP intensive for women, professional women who are answering the call to their soul calling career. So by the time they get to me, they are on a subconscious level. They don't even necessarily know this off the bat, but on a subconscious level, they are ready to let things go. So that process does look like, and as I'm thinking about my clients, that's why I'm smiling. Because what happens is this process that perhaps they were thinking all this time was going to take some long drawn out, all of this, lightning bolt, whatever, to let something go. It usually takes a couple of minutes. It usually takes acknowledging something that they weren't talking about, or acknowledging, or, walking through the process of something that they just simply had not had the opportunity to tell someone about. And it just brings such a wonderful feeling to my heart, because I get a chance to witness, people understanding and seeing, like, wow, like that didn't take, I mean, they don't say it, but I can see, and I get a chance to witness that. I had someone tell me that they had over 10 years of whatever it is that they were going through. And in a matter of less than 15 minutes, we were able to process that information. And so I think a lot of this work, in terms of people releasing pain and things of that nature, and it depends on who you're talking to and what their areas of focus are. My area of focus is very specific.
Yeah.
So my process is very specific. But if you go to someone else, their process could be completely different. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, Catherine.
It's all good. It's all good. You're just talking about the different processes that people are going through, and how you're leading clients through that process for themselves.
Yeah, just to have the opportunity to witness, what I have had the opportunity to witness. And I was remarking for the past couple of weeks that it is very interesting that I get the opportunity to meet a lot of what I'll call little U's within the women that I have the opportunity to work with, after I had a conversation with my little U. And I said, wow, this is very interesting. And that was talk about utilizing imagination to have something happen the way that it did. And we can talk about that if you want.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I have had the opportunity to have a conversation with a lot of little U's who needed to give themselves their voice back. And once that occurs, that's it.
Yeah. And it's always amazing to me when working with clients, when working with people, how sometimes it can be something as small as just taking that voice back. And it's the biggest life changer, but it's something that they've carried around with them for so long. It's a story that they've held on to, a belief that they've held on to. And then suddenly something can shift. And usually it's in the witnessing of it, where their voice is actually heard, and they're able to go, that's exactly what I was looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing work. And, I've been doing it since 2011, but it never gets old. Never. This is it. Like, this is it.
That's wonderful. Now, talking about how after you were working with your own little you, and then you see this almost the same little you that's showing up in all of these other women.
Yep.
I've witnessed that myself in my own practice. And to me, it's almost like getting these different viewpoints as you're speaking to other people's little yous in that small story. And you're like, oh, I needed to hear that. Oh, I needed to hear that.
Exactly. Exactly. Did you want to go a little deeper with
Sure.
that?
It's wherever you want to take it. So,
Okay. Okay. Well, this was a very interesting experience, Catherine,
okay.
because I was sleeping actually. And what's very interesting with me is I get a lot of messaging in the sleep realm, or just before going off to sleep, just before waking up, which
Okay.
I've since learned is considered the theta state, which
Yeah.
is a semi-hypnotic state. Um, but I don't believe I was in the theta state with this one. I just, there must have been something that I was trying to work out on a subconscious level prior to going to sleep. And um, I started being shown like a reel of imagery, like a movie screen, but different flashes of different moments in time. And I clearly heard, pick one, and we're going to go there and we're going to work something out.
Mm.
And I'm like, and this is all happening while I'm sleeping. So, so I picked an image, and that image was of myself. I don't know how old I was, but I was very young, and I was watching my mother leave the house, and all of these emotions were just going through, like sadness and loneliness, and all kind of stuff was happening. Now, where she was going, I don't know. She could have been going to the supermarket for all I know, but you know how this work is. Things can present themselves symbolically so that you can process information. So it might not be the reality of what was happening at that moment, but this is what I was shown. So I went, my imaginary self, or my dream state self, was able to go up to my younger self while she was standing at the window. And I was being instructed to not like bulldoze the situation or act like I knew what was going to happen, to ask her permission if I could communicate with her.
Mm.
And if I could, speak with her, if I could hug her and touch her, because she was angry, she was upset. And she turned toward me and she just shook her head like, yes. And I gave her a hug. And as we're hugging, this transference of energy began to happen, where she was communicating with me without words what she was feeling. And right when I would feel that energy, I was able to energetically give her what she needed based on what the energy that I was receiving. So there was this transference just going back and forth. And so I found, I'm hugging her, I'm loving her, I'm giving her love, I'm giving her everything she was looking for. And the emotions of it were so strong and so powerful, it jolted me awake.
Wow.
So I actually was sitting in the bed and I was hugging myself, like rocking and hugging and crying.
Yeah.
And I allowed, like, when I became consciously aware of it, I decided that I was going to allow this process to take place, because I didn't know what was. So it's like you're in between two worlds at that point, because you were just dreaming, and now here's this. So it's like I was in between two worlds, basically.
Yeah.
And so as this process was taking place, little Lisa and I, on an energetic level, it was like we just began to break up into like all billions of energetic pieces of some sort, like went out into the universe and then came like quickly back into my body, like an integration.
Yeah.
And I learned later on from a doctor that I'd had a Facebook Live with. He calls himself the Anxiety MD.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he talked about how a lot of emotional pain and things of that nature are rooted in, things that have happened in childhood. And when I talked to him about this whole process, he's like, oh yeah, I know what that was. And he tells me whatever it was called. I don't remember at this point. But he was telling me there was a medical term for this process, and
Wow.
that What had happened was that this concentrated energy that the body was trying to process in a concentrated, hard to deal with way, it allowed me to break it all up and then reintegrate it back into the body, so it was dispersed in a more even, easier to deal with manner. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, all right, doc. But that was the physical experience that I had was, just a weight. Just, I didn't even know this weight was there until it was gone. But the other amazing aspect of this is that these things that we're dealing with, these aspects, these energetic states of being, and these blocked energies, they exist because something has lodged itself and it needs to be expressed. So it's like, on one hand, it's a memory. And on another hand, it's very real because the energy of it still exists inside of your body and is still playing itself out. It's playing itself out in the assumptions we're making about ourselves, the inner conversations we're having, and ultimately the actions we're taking. Yeah. What I noticed with this process was that once that particular storyline or aspect of little Lisa was healed, every single storyline related to that particular space and time. So from that moment, which was years ago, up until this present moment, all of it was wiped away. All of it was gone. Yeah. So, but I didn't know that this was playing itself out until it was not there. So I didn't know that it was there until it was not there. So I could feel the space, the energetic space that had been freed up as a result of that process. Yeah.
I think it's absolutely fantastic, because I think it's work that people are always trying to do, trying to get to that root of what is this heaviness that I'm carrying. And you've just simplified it, because really what it comes down to is us hugging that younger part of ourselves. And yes, maybe mom was just going to the supermarket, but in those moments, little you was just experiencing so much feelings of abandonment and loneliness and sadness and all of this, which are perfectly normal responses. Yes. As the adult self, we can look at it and we could go, well, it's okay. Mom's just going to be right back. It's okay. Mm-hmm. But for little us, we don't actually understand that. And so we carry those emotions because usually we don't have the ability to actually process what those emotions are when we're so young.
Exactly. And I love that you said that I simplified that, because I feel like that's part of my role in this life, because I get that particular comment over and over and over again. And I understand that my assumption and my taking on the state of being of a teacher when I was 12 has everything to do with how I explain information. And the fact that I think about it from a simplistic point of view. So information that could be very complex, for some reason, I have the ability to explain it in a very simplistic way, and the ability to tell a story that relates to something we're talking about. And I know that it comes from 12-year-old teacher Lisa.
So yeah, I know you just talked about this kind of empty space that came into you after you had that entire process. Mm-hmm. Would you say that when you're actually going through these shifts, that it would feel like an empty space? Or how do you know that a shift has actually occurred so that you know that you'll get what it is that you're imagining in your mind?
Now, that particular scenario allowed me to feel this empty space.
Okay.
That's how I would describe that. in terms of if I am looking to do something in particular, or I'll back up and say this. I'll say, for one, a lot of why people do not have exactly what they want versus what they compromise, and maybe perhaps aren't even processing that they're compromising, is because they are not willing to face what they actually want versus something else. So, you know, we're masters of compromise because the world is always trying to tell us what success looks like, what a mom is, what a wife or husband is, what the world is defining things. And because we don't have the opportunity to process that information or to say yes or no, that's something I agree with, or I disagree with that, we end up building lives of compromise and lives of, once we've created all of this compromise, there are also lives of surviving within the compromise. And it's the wonderful job of the body to keep making us feel uncomfortable in order to bring us back to authenticity and alignment with who we are by asking questions. What is going, my favorite question to ask myself, and I said, this question has become like one of my best friends. And it is, what is going on? So I may not know anything, no particulars, no details, nothing about anything that I'm feeling in terms of being uncomfortable or in a space of discomfort. But I know I'm not comfortable. I know, either you're having migraine headaches, you're having trouble digesting food, you're paranoid, you don't trust, you're overindulging, there is something that is occurring that is not in balance, that because your body is telling you, the individual. So everybody's different how they express all of that.
Yeah.
But once you identify that something is not right, like I said, my favorite question is, what is going on? And it might not come to me that day, but the discomfort doesn't go anywhere. The things that you're doing to try to compensate for what you're not feeling good about is not going anywhere. So this is what I love about the body, is even though we're feeling and expressing it as something that doesn't feel comfortable, if that were not happening, we would not have an indication that something is wrong or something is off or something's out of balance. Which is why I said I'm going to create this process, leverage, or pain, because emotional pain is only another form of communication.
Yeah.
Trying to tell you something is out of whack. And if for the individual, for every individual, whatever that pain is you're expressing, if you, the individual, turns around and faces that pain, that particular pain for you, based on what's happening and all of the circumstances and all of that, it begins to speak to you like a GPS that customizes the answers for you. So this is why there's no cookie cutter way.
Yeah.
And everybody's process is, generally speaking, the process might be the same, but in terms of everybody is so different.
Absolutely. Because I know there's been some, say, books that I've read that I'm like, life changer, everybody needs to read this. And another person will read it and they're like, meh. And I'm like, how did you not get that from that?
Like, what do you like? Exactly.
But yeah, it needs to be in your language. It needs to be in a way that connects with your heart, or is even just the right words put in the right way to make you go, that's the answer I was looking for.
Yeah, well, you just spoke to, this is why if you're looking to do some type of work and you say, oh, well, I can't do that because there's so many people out there doing that. And it's like, it doesn't matter whether there's a million people out there doing it. The point is that your vibration, your energy, how you express what you're doing, it could be the same exact thing, and someone's resonance, will gravitate toward me because I'm speaking not only their verbal language, but I'm speaking their energetic and vibrational and frequency language. So they're going to gravitate toward me for those reasons. Even if myself and you are doing the same exact work, it's really not the same. It ends up not being the same. Exactly. Because we're completely different or we're expressing ourselves in completely unique and individual ways.
Yes. So going back to the question about imagination, because I really think this whole imagination to create your reality is so huge. So, and I had asked this question, but then we talked a little bit more about the process that you had gone through and going through that pain. So how do you know, as you're imagining what it is that you want, that a shift has actually occurred for you, that you're going to be experiencing life in a different way, where you're no longer compromising?
Okay, and I'm so glad you brought me back, because I'll go off into East. Like I went to a whole nother country, and now, okay. How you know that is, first let me explain that our thoughts coupled together with our emotion is what's creating a reality structure inside of the brain, inside of the mind. So if you've heard this before, the mind does not know the difference between you're thinking something and it actually happening in your, what we consider to be reality. If you were to stop and pay attention to your surroundings, pay attention to who is in your space, pay attention to the work that you're doing, every single thing that is in your space is something that you created to be there at some time or another. First, we forget what it is that we created from some time ago, and we might say, oh, I didn't create that, but yes, you did. Yes, there's something that you said, there's something you were thinking, whatever that caused you to create this reality. But what is happening, let's just say, for instance, that you want to experience something different. What you would need to do is put yourself in a state of being as if you are already experiencing that thing. And let's just say, I'll talk about a new house that I'm imagining.
Okay.
As I go into the house, in my mind, there's a difference between a third person, looking upon something as if you're looking upon a movie screen. So you're standing outside of it, looking upon it. Yeah. That's one way where people call that visualizing. However, I'm talking about going into the state. So I'm not looking upon the house as if in a movie screen. I'm taking my being, my imagination inside the house. And how do I do that? And everybody's different. So what you're going to begin to experience when you think about your house is going to be different than my experience of my going inside of my house. So for me, the very first thing my consciousness seemed to want to answer was, what did the front door look like? So I begin to, just by asking the question, my mind begins to imagine. And what is happening is there are a lot of assumptions that are playing themselves in the background that begin to come to the forefront to assist in our understanding what my front door is going to look like versus your front door. So my front door, I wanted it to be double doors with a frosted, semi-frosted look to the glass, and it's this decorative glass, and I can actually feel my hand on the doorknob. But then as I think about the doorknob, I begin to imagine, what does that doorknob look like? Is it the long kind that you have to pull down, or is it so your imagination begins to engage you. All of your sensory perception begins to engage you to answer the questions as you begin to go inside of a state of being as if something has already occurred. So then when I cross over the threshold of the door, the very next question for me, because of whatever assumptions are playing themselves in the background, is this a foyer? Is this a hardwood floor? Is the foyer big? Is it long? So your imagination and all of your faculties are engaging that. And then you start thinking, okay, well, the floor is, hardwood and it's dark cherry wood. And then your feet can actually begin to start to feel what that floor feels like under your feet. This is going inside of a state of being. And as your thoughts and your emotion coupled together, not one or the other, coupled together, begin to interact and engage in that way, this is how you know you are already there. I'm already inside of the house. So there is no question about how do I get inside of the house. I am already inside of the house. And as you begin to continue, because perseverance is what brings momentum, of continuing to have that engagement of being inside of the house. So your job is not to ask who, what, when, where, how, or why about the house. It's only to continue to go in and continue to feel what that feels like. And as you begin to allow that momentum, which is shifting your neurology, because remember, the mind doesn't know the difference between something called reality and something going on in the mind. So as you continue to engage that, the next thing you know, and for everybody it's different, but the next thing you know, you're in the house.
Yes.
So part of what I see that people can do, the terminology manifesting, and, there's certain terms that they get, the translation, the people's experiences, people's understanding. When people hear that word, there could just be this blanket, yeah, right. You know what I mean? But what I've come to understand about this is manifesting something. First of all, everything already exists.
Yes.
All states of being already exist. We are only aligning or remembering something that already belongs to us. Because if it did not already belong to you, it would not show up in your energetic space at all. It would not be a part of your consciousness. So as soon as you begin to think about something and say, this is what you want, you might as well say you already have it, because it would not have arisen in your energetic space had it not already been a part of your energetic space and your reality. But I notice that people can give up because they don't understand the difference between what I just spoke about, and they had never felt the relationship between, what it is they desired and going in. They always stood outside of it. So it did not belong to them in their perception, and it was over there at some point in time. Yeah. And what I'm talking about is something that brings there, here, now. And when you feel here and now, and you feel the emotional, neurological shifts that begin to happen in a body as a result of that, you don't want to let it go. You will not let it go. So you'll continue, and I instruct my clients to pick a particular scene and a particular emotion that signifies that something has already occurred. And I instruct them to fall off to sleep with that thought and that emotion, and wake up with that thought and emotion. And as much as it keeps coming to you on a day-to-day basis, as many times a day as it comes, as long as it's gentle and feels natural, then you're going to stick with that, and you're going to keep. I've only witnessed my clients have what's called, my favorite mentor, Neville Goddard, calls it bridges of incidents. These bridges of incidents or synchronicities that begin to occur because you have gone into the state as if something has already occurred. I only experience them having the momentum of that state of being, and they'll come back to me with even more detail, because that's what that process will do. It will keep giving you more. For example, I'll go back to the house I was talking to you about. There was a particular scene that I kept seeing, and I was walking from the back part of the house to go answer the front door. And this would just keep coming to me very naturally. And I knew who was at the door. I, would feel myself coming from the back, going to the door. And all of a sudden, in terms of the additional information that starts being provided to you, one time when I'm walking down the hall, I could feel this heat coming from the ceiling as I'm walking to the door. And I'm like, why am I feeling heat coming from the ceiling? And in my imagination, I look up and I see, oh, there's a chandelier there. I did not remember. I told you there's assumptions that are playing in the background that are assisting with these bridges of incidents, with the details that are being provided. So I know that I've wanted a chandelier. I just had not thought of it. But here came, like, there was actual heat coming from the ceiling as I'm going to the door, and I look up and it's a chandelier.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean by the momentum of your going into the state as if it has already occurred will continue to provide more and more detail, and you will not want to exit. Who would want to exit what you're already experiencing as your reality right now?
Exactly. Nobody.
Exactly.
Like if you're in alignment with what your vision is for yourself, you're just only going to want to add more to it.
Exactly.
And to ask yourself, what else is possible now? What else is possible?
Exactly. And there was something else I was going to say in terms of this, thing we call manifesting. What I've noticed is that this is the most incredible inner work that I have ever experienced. So if whomever you're dealing with that is not themselves going through that process, I would say, I don't know what that is. All I know is that for me and for anyone that I have worked with, it is definitely manifesting. You are bringing forth what is already you. And on that path of allowing where you once were not allowing, you begin to have a more deeper understanding as to why you were not allowing it to begin with. And this is where the work, as far as the emotional pain and allowing that process to happen, comes into play. Because on that path of allowing the imagination to open up and allowing yourself to understand that everything is possible, on that path, you will begin to identify why you will not believe that, why you've chosen not to believe that, why you have chosen not, to be more on the negative side of things, or you'll begin to understand that about yourself in order to do the work to clear that, in order to be accepting of the possibilities. That is how I understand manifesting to be, not anything other than that.
I absolutely 100% agree with you on that, because it's so often, I believe, we get so caught up in thinking if we don't have the results like this, then we just need to give up on it. But it's a process, and it's identifying what those emotions are, what those belief systems have been in the past based on whatever the case might be. And sometimes it's actually the pain that shines the complete light on helping you to get to that step of what it is that you want. And if we keep running away from that pain, then we actually keep running away from those things that we actually want to have in our lives.
Oh my goodness. No truer words have been spoken. It is always the pain that shines the light. It's all, and it sounds counterintuitive, but what you must turn and face is the way through to what you're looking to do and have and be. That comes before anything, because it's all you. And everything is always working. That's the other thing. Everything is always working. It's just that the world has taught us to compartmentalize things and to see this is that and this is that is it, but you are the being having the experience no matter what. You're the being who's the role. You're the being who's the mom. You're the being who's doing the doing. You're the being who is having all of these experiences. So how can we say that something is not working? What is not working? What actually is not working? And
It's
actually, what is not happening? Something is always happening. Something is always working. Everything works. It's just based on our perception and where we're at in a particular space and time, what we're willing to see, how we're processing information. All of that is what's coming into play in order for us to decide on a particular space and time about a particular thing. And then guess what? After we're done with all of that, we're on to something else. It's never going to end. Like,
yes.
Like, as long as we're here, this is what's happening. So it's never over. Like, it's never, there's no beginning, there's no end, there just is.
Yes. And I think it's so important to reiterate the whole time and space thing, because it's so often we get caught up in this is just my life now, but it's really just this is part of the life experience right now in this moment, and the next moment it's going to be totally different.
Exactly.
And after that, totally different again. So we need to just, I guess, let the emotions come up, be there, have the thoughts, whatever, and then get on to the next moment and the next.
I like where someone said, I can't remember who it was, but they said, an emotion is presenting itself to come up in order to, teach you something, for you to process. It's not there to hurt or harm you. It's there for your benefit. But we've been taught to believe something opposite of that. So we run instead of face. But I know after this talk, that's not happening anymore.
Exactly.
I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
So, Lisa, we are just getting to the end of the hour here. And there's one question that I always ask all of the guests that are on here. Do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to share with the guests that you believe the world needs to hear right now?
You only know what you know until you know something else.
Love it.
That's what I wish, because everybody thinks they know everything about everything. And it's like, you only know what you know until you know something. You're only coming from a perspective at this space and time based on this, that, or the other. But no sooner than your perspective shifts, will you open up a door for a whole nother reality, So I just say, relax, like chill out, relax. Because it's all working, it's all happening. And for us to be consciously aware, not to know that these things that we consider to be good and bad that are happening on the inside, emotional states of being, it's all us. To polarize only wanting the good to happen all the time would be something where the nature is not speaking in that manner. Nature is expressing winter and summer and rain and sun. And we're a part of all of that. We're a part of every single thing. So I would ask for us to be consciously aware that we're all of these parts. We're every aspect. And the sooner we accept all aspects of ourselves, the sooner we will stop diminishing an aspect of ourselves, because it's not what people are saying it's supposed to be this, that, or the other, and just accept all aspects of ourselves, which makes it easier, way easier on us to be able to flow through this life and create balance.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us here tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you everyone who's joined the call tonight. Next week, we have Vered Siegel joining us, and she is another life coach who's going to be talking to us about how she helps people move energies and stuff to help get past those blocks. So I hope you guys will join us then. Have a great night, everyone, and thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you.